All right, yeah. So I did a little review of several WSSI events last year. So just give you a little background. I think you heard you know quite a bit about this. So what is it? What is it? Basically, it's the Winter Storm Severity Index. That is basically reading in NDFD gridded database along with static data sets such as land use things to give us a graphical depiction of the severity of expected winter weather impacts. Just to break it down a little bit further, then what impact categories we have. It's a little bit more than the GHWO. So it's showing us, first of all, we can get an impact category for snow load, which is essentially the weight of the snow on trees, for example. You know, are we going to have any broken tree limbs, etc. Snow amount is just simply the accumulation, and it is normalized for climatology. So you know, 6 inches here in Denver may not be much, but 6 inches in Atlanta is going to be the end of the world. Ice accumulation, same thing with the ice accumulation, but it also takes into account not just the accumulation from the FRAM, but also the wind load from expected wind speeds. Blowing snow is also using the wind, this time including snow accumulation as well. That does include the land use we talked about before. So that is for new fresh falling snow. In contrast, the ground blizzard there at the bottom you'll see is only using the pre-existing snow cover. And we actually have a recent event for that we'll cover here too. Flash freeze product is simply using the temperature drop with falling snow as well. So you're all aware of the benefits of the WSSI. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the evaluation that we did here in Boulder and show you a few case studies from last winter that we provided through the WSSI team that included Mark Klein and Josh Cashman, as long as a new one from this winter that we'll discuss here. Basically, the bottom line is that we're hoping to improve the products based on our findings and also bring further refinement to some of the categories, the impact categories that we'll talk about. So first up, before we get to the big blizzard, I wanted to talk about the March 6th and 7th event that we had here. This was a heavy snowfall for the mountains. We had over 2 feet of snow in the mountains, and most of that fell in about 15 hours. It just dumped. And that was on top of already what we had. It was just a couple days before that, a 1 to 3 foot snowfall. So the impacts from that particular event were huge for us. So this is going to last year's graphics, of course. I just wanted to highlight here the snow forecast from the Winter Storm Severity and the Winter Storm Severity Index. So in the bottom right corner, you'll see our weather story for that day had significant travel impacts for the mountains. Heavy focus on the heavy snow for the I-70 corridor, which you can see is that magenta highlighted area, basically an 8 to as much as 24 inches in some of these mountain areas. The WSSI thing had some, you know, severity index had some pockets of moderate to major and even a couple extreme, which was great through that corridor. But at the same time, you'll see on the next slide, most of that was due to the blowing snow component, as you'll see here in the left image here through that area but the snow load or the snow amount component, excuse me, was only showing minor to moderate impacts, even with an 8 to 12 to 18 plus, you know, in some places 24-inch forecasts in some of these areas. So moving ahead, what did it look like up there in the mountains on the evening of the 6th? It was snowing 2 inches an hour. You can see the depth of the snow on Vail Pass. The plows simply weren't keeping up. The visibility was just, you know, it was just dumping. And a tweet that we had here for just basically road closures, don't get caught out there. So definitely would at least support major impacts for pretty much all the I-70 corridor through the mountains, just based on the snow rates alone. And then the next morning, we wake up to the snow is done pretty much, but now we have to deal with avalanche danger because of the extreme snow load that was incurred over the last several days. So that was one of our big takeaways from this event was not only, you know, do we have to deal with the snow accumulation and the snow rates and removal from the roads, but now we have snow load impacts, which are causing historic avalanche danger. So that was a big takeaway for us, is like maybe we can do, you know, some sort of a rating adjustment to not just the snow amount, but also how much has occurred over the last several days. This could also be, you know, impact things down the road, in other geographic areas. I'm thinking through the course of the of the year. For example, you know, you get a huge snow load in the Great Lakes during the lake effect snow season. You know, you're going to have structural failures, things like that. So it could be quite adaptable, I think, to any location over the nation. In this particular event too, we also had, you know, in the bottom right corner here, you'll see I-70 wasn't shut down, but we had live traffic going through, basically avalanche releases. Fortunately, nobody was killed in that, but boy, did that cause, you know, you guys probably saw, many of you saw the videos coming out of Colorado last March of, you know, the live videos with people taking imagery of basically avalanche shooting right across a major interstate. That's not safe. And so certainly something of a more extreme, you know, this is a historic avalanche danger that we saw with this particular event. Now we'll go to the bomb cyclone real quick here. The overview was a quick rain changing to heavy wind-driven snow across the plains. You know, this was the true bomb, the big one that affected so many of us from the central high plains here all the way up to the northern high plains and upper Midwest. So let's get, without further ado, let's look at what it showed here around our area. This was from the forecast from March 12th, the morning before the storm. You note the WSSI impact captured the area rather well. We were expecting, here's the I-70 corridor, if you can see, running up from Denver up to Cheyenne, Fort Collins. Basically, the highest winds were expected east of I-25, so it did a nice job highlighting the area. Even then, though, we still only had moderate to major impacts expected. Now, Cheyenne was in that area is more of extreme, so we thought maybe it was the wind that was our wind forecast that was a limiting factor. But we'll continue on here. The snow amount component, you can see there wasn't that much snow forecast, so the snow amount component wasn't high. But so most of that overall severity was due to the blowing snow component, which you'll see again, the Cheyenne area is all in the extreme area, but by the time you drop down into northeast Colorado here, it was mostly the moderate to major category. You know, DIA is right here on the edge. So pretty much in the major category. So we'll show a nice little video from that coming up soon. Sorry for the blurry graphics here, but these were the forecast winds that we had. This was the morning of the storm. So we were looking at basically anywhere across all of northeast Colorado, anywhere east of I-25, at least 60-mile-per-hour gusts. We had pockets of several large areas of 70-plus-mile-per-hour winds, and even some forecasts of 80-plus miles per hour. There's a few pixels of that you'll see scattered about. Snow amounts didn't change much. Here's the forecast again. Sorry about the little blurry picture there, but basically most of the northeast plains of Colorado, anywhere east of I-25, was looking at least 6 to 12 inch snow forecast. So this has to be an extreme event. You're thinking, well, we didn't change the impact category at all, pretty much for anywhere east of I-25. We major, but this was almost a, you know, you could almost determine this being a once in a lifetime event for considering the magnitude of the winds. We have never forecast in my 25 plus years here in Denver winds of that strong with accumulating snowfall. So just to show you a real quick clip of what it looked like. This is Pena Boulevard. So that's traffic. It's basically, you call that zero, I call that zero visibility. Traffic trying to get to and from the airport. Don't ask people where they were thinking they were going to fly from, but people trying to get home from the airport too were caught up in this and basically stranded out there on Pena Boulevard out by DIA. But that's how bad it was. And that wasn't the scene there too. That was across all of the Northeast Plains. So we shut down pretty much all the roads here. CDOT closures for the afternoon of the 13th. Basically everything was shut down. Took 2 days or more even in some areas to clear some of those roads. Excuse me, I'm gonna get rid of that background noise for you there. So yeah, pretty much everything was shut down across Northeast Colorado and surrounding states as well. Snow amounts, what do they look like? So you'll see even here on the eastern plains, actually the forecast was probably a little heavy-handed, if you would. But even here on the plains, it's hard to measure snow. There's so much blowing wind, but nonetheless, even 3, 4, or 5 inches of snow cause significant impacts and road closures for an extended period of time. And the peak wind gusts, I'll even briefly quick over this, but it says 75 there at DIA. We actually hit a peak wind gust of 80 miles per hour, which was our 3rd strongest ever wind report at Denver, in Denver. This goes all the way back through Denver records, and the 2nd strongest at DIA, which compared only to the tornado that moved over the ASOS back in 2013 and had a 97 mile per hour wind gust reported with that. So an 80 mile per hour wind gust recorded at DIA. And I think Springs went up to 97 miles per hour as well, or 96 or 97. It was just ridiculous amount of wind with that bomb cyclone. Moving forward to another event here, the May 20th, 2019 was a heavy, really wet late season snow for us. It wasn't a big snow by any means. Of course, it's late May, so you'll note here in the snow forecast for the Denver metro area, we're pretty much talking anywhere from about 2 inches on the north side of town to as much as 6 or more inches on the south side of town, and 8 inches down on the Palmer Divide. So pretty significant wet snow, considering especially how heavy the spring snows are here. And of course, it's the end of May, so trees are leaved out, so we're looking for broken tree limbs in the forecast. But at the same time, we didn't get a whole lot in the WSSI category. So and especially in the snow load component, there was basically nothing for Denver. So one of our recommendations here was we need to be including, certainly impacts for the state of the vegetation. So maybe a yes/no switch for trees. We were thinking, toying around with ideas for that, how we could better, adjust these snow load components for the state of the vegetation. And last event I'll cover here is the November 30th. Just recently here, a recent high wind event we had with several inches of fresh snow on the ground. Again, really high winds. This was more of a wind event, not combined with falling snow. So this is a whole different category from our March blizzard. Looking at the no risk analysis here, you'll note across most of northeast Colorado, there's roughly about 4 to 10 inches of loose snow to blow. This was a few days after our big storm we had on November 25th and 26th. So a lot of loose snow, and which was really atypical for us here. None of this snow had crusted over. Normally in Colorado, how it is, it snows hard. Yeah, okay, 2 days later, sun's out, melting. But we were kind of stuck in this really shallow cold inversion, limited sunshine, and did not crust over the snow. So a lot of fresh snow to blow up there. We had high wind warnings in effect with forecast gusts anywhere from 60 to 70 miles per hour across most of the plains. 40 to 55 miles per hour right up and down the metro areas. And you'll note here in Boulder and south of Boulder, we had basically forecasts up to 60 to 70 plus miles per hour. So I'm going to focus now on this little area here south of Boulder. For those of you who've been out here and trying to drive down from Boulder to Golden and get down to I-70, that area is quite prone to strong gusty downslope winds. So a 70 plus mile per hour forecast, probably 10 to 12 inches of loose snow on the ground should give us a nice ground blizzard component. It ended up we didn't get much here. Now we know it was working a little bit because we looked up in Wyoming where we saw things, saw some component from the ground blizzard. But I've chatted with Josh Kastman a little bit here, and he's actually known that he just actually emailed me this morning, says yes, we did have a bug in the program, so we're gonna work through that. So I think that's one of the advantages here that we're finding. This is obviously new category we're looking at, a new product we're looking at, and we're finding these little, working out some of these little things here. So we're gonna rerun that case and see what we get from this one. Just to show you what it looked like, here's some of the road closures up along where it was so windy in the morning, up along the Wyoming border, and then note. We'll go down here along Highway 93 between Boulder and Golden. And Paul's pretty excited here. Now, this is just 4 miles west of his neighborhood. But this is what it looked like in this area. That's an all-out ground blizzard. This reporter for the news says he only recorded a 63-mile-an-hour wind in his handheld anemometer, but before he got there, we were gusting to 80 miles per hour. There's a local CDOT sensor actually at this intersection that gusted to 80+ miles an hour. So you can only imagine what it was like then. But absolutely true ground blizzard conditions out there. Pretty impressive stuff. Am I sharing it?
Yeah, you're still sharing.
Okay,
You're good.
Okay, so some of our findings, you know, that was a pretty exciting case there. WSSI team has already worked with us and a few other offices as well of getting, you know, making things change in an earlier event. Several other earlier events, we found that were not presented here. We noticed it was difficult to get some minor or even moderate thresholds reached. So WSSI team reviewed that and were able to adjust those values and allow those to be met more frequently to allow for low to moderate snow accumulations. As you're aware of, even in, you know, areas that are normally adaptable to snow and get snow frequently, only an inch or two can have considerable travel impacts, especially another thing we thought about was considering the, you know, the peak commuting times and trying to highlight those. Another interesting note for us was that, you know, in such a historic avalanche year, not just the snow load component was big over several days of heavy snowfall and not just one storm. So maybe some sort of a accumulation method that we can keep track of in the WSSI over a period of time when we start reaching critical thresholds for not just avalanches, but for, you know, roof lines and things like that. In that avalanche season, one of our avalanche victims was actually trying to mitigate the roof load or the load on the roof when the whole entire roof slid, and he was actually buried underneath that, unfortunately. So there's a lot that goes into that. Let's see here, what else? We have the snow load refinement, you know, like we talked about, could easily translate to the Great Lakes and other areas. We also discussed that the winds were creating much higher hazards or impacts than were shown in the WSSI products or in the blowing snow and blizzard products alike. We definitely think that there's room for improvement there, that we can, you know, make further adjustments there based on, you know, when we really get to these extreme winds, the 40, 50, especially the 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, you know, how can we go about showing that as an impact a little bit better and pushing that to that extreme category. And certainly for the snow load, that we've done a lot with the state of the vegetation as well. And finally, I think, you know, one of the major takeaways is that, you know, the continued collaboration with the team. They've been easily making some you know, refinements to these products. So they also did the flash freeze adjustment too for some over forecasting there that was done last year. So now they're using a 3-hour window instead of a 1-hour window. And then we're going to do some, you know, certainly continue to do some dry run testing of these events. Like you said, Josh is going to rerun the case. Just got a note back from him this morning that he's going to rerun that November 30th case and also the November 25th, 26th storm, which was a big one, which they were having some server troubles back there. But and we'll go ahead and provide further feedback on that. And what's nice is I think it's also showing some, you know, more details into the exact winter components versus the current standing GHWO right now. So there's a lot of use for emergency managers as well to consider that there's more stuff in that. And maybe we can incorporate, you know, eventually some of this stuff into the GHWO to have that more of a broken down product as well. So, you know, ground blizzards, the blowing snow component, the snow load component, things like that. So other than just, you know, the snow, sleet, or extreme cold. So that's just really looking forward to, you know, kind of the advances being made there. And then, you know, like Randy, I think you talked about, you know, some of the temporal adjustments too, to be able to break this down on a much more refined basis as well will help as well for decision making on that level. So that's all I got.